Hello, and welcome back to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and we are once again in the Repeats Redux category. We're looking at repeat endings and specifically the show on options that are available. So let's see what that is. So if we go to our repeat tool, select a measure and press return to get the repeat selection dialog box, we'll choose an ending, press select, and what we're dealing with now is the show on options at the bottom of the window here. And by default, Finale will set this to top staff only. We can change this default setting, which I will show you later in the video, but for now it's just top staff only, which means that this ending bracket will get only shown on the top staff. You can see it doesn't exist anywhere else up and down the score, right? But there are some other options there to deal with, including the all staffs option. So let's start there. So you select all staffs and click OK, and you would think that Finale is going to put that ending on all of the staffs, but lo and behold, it doesn't really put it on all of the staffs. In fact, if you see what's going on, it's really just putting it on all of the staffs that exist at the top of a group. So the soprano part is at the top of the choir group here. The clarinet on top of the woodwind group. The French horn is its own group, so it gets one. Same with the piano, and same with the violin 1 on top of the strings group, right? Now, why is that you chose all staffs? Well, the show on options for the repeat endings are intimately linked to the staff attributes of every staff. And if you go into the staff attributes for the soprano staff, for example, you will see this option here in items to display called endings and text repeats, and it is checked. However, in the alto part, it is not checked, which is why the alto part does not show the ending bracket on the score. Now it's very simple. We can just check that for the alto part and select OK, and now all of a sudden it will show up on the alto part as you would think it would. So that that all staffs option for showing on in the repeat selection dialog box doesn't quite show on all. It shows on all of the staffs that have that staff attribute option checked, okay? And then the third option here is for staff lists. Now, the staff list is very similar to the score list from the expression category, with a couple of major differences. The first is that we're not limited to only 8 of them. In fact, Finale gives us up to 1,023 staff lists, apparently, according to the manual. Not that I would ever use 1,023 staff lists. I would be surprised if I use more than one staff list for the the endings here, but it's available to you if you want. I'm actually more upset that we have a limit of 8 in the expression score list, but that's a discussion for another day. But anyway, so let's look at this the staff list a little bit. So just choose whatever staff list 1 is here. Now you'll see this window. It looks kind of similar to the score list window from the expression category. It's a little bit different though, so let me just show you what's going on. So just like the score list, we have the score column here on the left and the parts column here on the right, and we can sort of check whichever we want. So by putting an X on the soprano line under the score column, we're showing the ending on the soprano part in the score. By putting an X here, we're showing the ending on the soprano part, right? So we can choose any combination of anything that we want, and if we wanted to, we could just randomly show this text ending in a pattern like this, right? So there's some other options here, including top staff in the score. So this will disregard whatever's here. Will always show on the top staff. Actually, it will show on the top staff and the tenor and the clarinet part in this case, because I have all of this checked. Same with the bottom staff, whatever the bottom staff is, the cello, if you really want to do that, or all staffs, and then everything will just kind of get dashed out here, I guess, because it's saying that the all staffs applies to everything. Same with the parts. Of course, parts can have multiple staffs, so that's why there would be an option for all staffs, bottom staff, and top staff for the parts, right? So we could check any of that and get that kind of thing. We could also clear the score here, clear the parts, set all of the score X's, set all of the part X's, etc. That'll work just like that. And then the other really unique thing about the staff list compared to the score list from the expression tool is that not only can you put an X in a column, but if you click it again, you'll get an F. Now, what's interesting here is that the F stands for forced. So you're forcing the ending to show, right? What's interesting that is that even if you click X here for the score for all staffs, it's going to respect the staff attributes as I showed you before. So if the alto part is not showing the text, the endings and text repeats, it's not going to show it with just a simple X. However, if I put an F there, now it's going to force the ending on every single staff, regardless of that staff attributes. And this X or F can go on any one of these positions. So we could force it on the alto part here, right? So if I choose something like, X on the actually it doesn't work like that. You'd have to set all of the score, get an X there, and then put an F on the alto part, right? So now you're showing it on every single staff. And forcing it on the alto staff, because again, these X's, even though there's an X on the tenor part, it won't actually show on the tenor part because the staff attributes is telling it not to. All right, so that's sort of how it works. And it works the same way with the parts too. We can force it on the part. And what's really strange about this, which I should have mentioned, and the reason why sometimes this is important, is because let's just go back here. I'm going to choose all staffs again. And again, you're going to get this situation where it's not showing on all staffs. It's showing on all staffs that have that staff attribute checked, right? The alto part does not have endings and text repeats showing. What's strange about this is that this also applies to the parts. So in the soprano part, you'll see the ending. In the alto part, you will not, which is really, a problem. This is definitely not a good scenario for you to not show the endings on certain parts, but to show it on others, right? So, as I was saying, the point of this is that with the staff list, we can force Finale to fix this for us by choosing something like, let's say, all staffs with the X in the score, which again will just show on all the staffs that have the staff attributes checked, but forced on the parts, right? So now on the top staff of every part, it will be forced to show. So this staff list scenario will give us something similar to showing on all staffs, but it will also allow us to show on every single part. Although you see what happened is that I applied that. Again, this has to do with the fact that there are two different endings here. When I just did that, I went and edited, and I just realized that I edited only the backward repeat bar assignment. I did not edit the actual edit ending, and you can see that the show on is different between the two. So I would just have to go in here and select the staff list again to get that to be right. And now it should show correctly everywhere. Great. The better way to do this, of course, is from scratch. If I had just created one, ending, create backwards repeat staff list, choose that staff list that I just created, and it will apply that show on to both the ending and the back ending, as it were. So yet another confusion about the fact that you have two different elements in this first ending. Just really not a great method of doing this in Finale. So let's go back here, and let's just see if there's anything else that I wanted to talk about in that staff list. Let's go here. Yeah, of course we could rename it, new list. We could add another staff list. We can delete, etc. But you can kind of see how with all of these options here between the X's and the F's, you could create some interesting scenarios where you're definitely showing on certain things but not other things. It's kind of flexible if you kind of can figure out how to manipulate that to your advantage. Now, I mentioned that by default, Finale will set this up initially with the top staff only option checked, which would do just that. However, we can actually change actually, let me just do that one more time. Set that top staff only. However, we can actually change the default by going into the document options, and actually we can get there directly from the repeat menu. If we choose repeat options, this will take us to the document options and to the repeats pane of the document options specifically. Now, right here about 2/3 of the way down, you have these show on options. Now, this is literally only going to give you it's only going to pre-fill out this show on options or selection every time you create one. So if I were to change this to all staves and apply, this does not retroactively change the setup of any existing endings. As you can see, nothing has changed here. It's only showing on the top staff. But going forward, if I were to create another ending, you'll see that it will pre-fill out all staves on the show on option, and we click OK, and we're good to go. It shows it does what I want it to. Interestingly, if you use the contextual menu and choose the first and second ending option, it will only ever use the option of top staff only, despite what's set in the document options, which is a strange behavior. Yet again, another strange behavior in the repeats tool finale. You can see a pattern here, but again, using that contextual menu for first and second ending will only ever create it on the top staff only. So that's another little oddity there. Let's see what else can we talk about here. Oh yeah, so let's start talking about the adjustments of the brackets. So let's say we're going to choose the all staves option for this ending. And as you'll see, we've got the ending on the soprano part, the clarinet part, etc. And everything has handles, right? It doesn't matter which handle you adjust, you're adjusting it everywhere. So if I move the 1 on the soprano staff, it's sort of linked to everything else. So you can see the 1 got moved on the clarinet, the French horn part, etc. If I were to grab the hook handle on the French horn part and move that up a little bit, you'll see that everything will move in concert together, and that hook will get shorter everywhere, right? So everything's sort of linked in that regard. But we do have that option with the handles to allow individual edits per staff. Now, once again, remember that these first endings like this are 2 elements. It's an ending with the left hook and the horizontal line, and a back ending with the right hook and the horizontal line overlapping. And the first part of that, the ending, has the number as well. So again, remember that this handle here and this handle here is part of 2 different elements. So if we choose allow individual edits per staff, this will apply to the whole ending. So that's, this handle, the 1 handle, right? If I right-click that, you'll see that it's checked again, and these 2 in the upper right are both checked, but it does not apply to this handle because this handle is part of the back ending, right? So we'd have to also allow individual edits per staff here. So now both of the elements of this repeat ending are allowing individual edits per staff. Now, what this does, as you would think, is that it will allow you to move something, this is the number 1 here in the soprano part, without affecting any of the other parts, right? And of course, we can always reset the bracket position there, and it will go back to normal. And of course, if I make a change in the clarinet part, we can make the hook a little bit shorter, and it only applies to the clarinet part. Interestingly, so here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to uncheck these allow individual edits for both of these things, right? And again, with it unchecked, what you're doing is you're making a universal change to the hook in this example. So I made the soprano hook a little shorter, and it made the clarinet hook shorter as well. So now, if I go and select allow individual edits per staff, let's go back to the clarinet part and make that hook larger again. And again, it will only apply to the clarinet part. All the other hooks will remain where they were. Interestingly, if we then go and uncheck the option to allow individual edits per staff, effectively what you're doing is you're sort of, relinking everything, relinking the handles back together, right? But what it will do is it will relink it to the last position that it existed in, right? So it's relinking it to that last short hook that I, adjusted before I allowed the individual edits. All right, so that's just how that works. And of course, we can always reset bracket position, and everything goes back to normal. So yeah, it does get a little confusing with that allow individual edits. Again, it's the whole thing about remembering that there's 2 pieces to this ending here, the ending and then the back ending and everything, and then how those handles relate to each other with, you can have individual edits per staff on each of those things independently, which is just it just gets confusing again. So a lot to keep track of. And that covers all the staff list options here. So yeah, so that's you know, just more complicated mess with these repeat endings, but that's hopefully that this enlightens you a little bit about how all of that works. All right, so thanks for watching. The next video is going to be about more of the repeat endings options. All of these settings, you know, these are the default positions for the brackets, the length of the hooks, the position of the number and everything. All of that can be set in the document options, which I'm going to show you next, and we'll get to that coming up soon. So once again, thanks for watching. I will see you soon on the next video.